My cruel stepmother and neglectful father wanted to force me to leave my home so they could give it to my spoiled stepsister, who is now pregnant and has no one to support her after her boyfriend dumped her. In the name of family, my surprisingly miserly, self-centered, and sometimes absent father, M62, has chosen to push me out of our home after lately learning how much money I will make. Ivy, F29, my stepsister and my dad's little princess, who is always perfect, has become pregnant through some mysterious means. She has lofty ambitions to be an escort and a model for OnlyFans, but she is clearly having problems finding a place to live. Unfortunately, now my dad wants to solve everything, and I am the problem. This woman made all the wrong decisions, and now I have no choice but to give her my house and all my hard-earned money. My dad publicly rejected me on several occasions because I was too much of a burden. However, he has become rather sensitive over our shared ancestry ever since he learned of my recent moves, employment, and, shockingly, money as well. Although I'm not thrilled with his penchant for bringing up my paternity, he is also trying to forge closer ties between me and his wife and their daughter. Even though she is also my dad's child, I was rejected at a young age from forming any sort of bond with the lady. Wow. I'm glad I refrained from doing that since I would be very let down. I just wanted to remind everyone before we begin that I'm here just to express my emotions, alright? I have a lot of ideas, sentiments, and opinions to put down on paper. Honestly, I don't have anybody else to tell, so I'm simply sharing this with you even if you might not agree with me or think they sound bad. My half-sister's name is Ivylyn, and let me present her to you. She's making her dad proud, and she's about 5 years younger than me. I mean it. Dad must be completely insane because this woman is out there doing nothing except sleeping with a flop and escorting. My dad says she's his pride and joy. Yeah, you heard it correctly. I'd be surprised if he understood the whole picture. Who will inform him? My priorities are my ethics and my work, even if I'm not very conservative. I make an effort to get to know ladies better by courting them whenever I get the chance. Even when there's initial attraction, obstacles like physical distance and scheduling conflicts might derail plans. Sometimes there is complete and utter misunderstanding. I make an effort to avoid sleeping with strangers. If I want to find the ideal lady, I need to be patient. Having a large number of casualties makes me gag. Why men act as if it were a metal object is beyond me. Hulking shit. In any case, this is how I live my life. Unfortunately, my stepsister thinks exactly the opposite. The number of her physical partners is likely to have slipped her mind. Well, she's an escort? Then. Not only does that make me gag, but it also poses a serious health risk. Escorts are subject to the strangest behavior from certain men. How someone could ever justify working in such a manner is beyond me. Then, she uses the internet to sell explicit images and videos of herself. There, she too fails miserably. Clearly has no idea how to launch the traffic, yet it fails miserably for some reason. How am I made aware of it? My friend informed me about this embarrassing story. Reports indicate that after meeting for a drink, Ivy once texted him to see if he was up for some fun. He stated he went out with my sister before he knew she was my sister, which made me even more enraged after hearing the story. He said she had provided him the URL to her page, and he showed it to me as well. I have no idea if he is telling the truth or not. I don't believe it's going well for her because she's perpetually short on cash and often begs her dad for money. I refrained from inquiring about it with her directly and also refrained from informing my dad about it. On a separate occasion, I overheard her talking on the phone and then sat in the car with an old man. They hit the road after he presented her with flowers. On occasion, she would return to the house by peeping through the window. When I would return home for the holidays from college, I would notice this. I refuse to participate in any of it, and I have no idea whether she is still involved. My position at work is highly esteemed. At last, it has brought me joy. My dad was so irritated by me that he would kick me out of the house whenever he got the opportunity. However, from what I've seen of Ivy, I can tell that she looks a lot like her mother, Claudia, F58. Claudia was, or else she would think she was a major star when she was younger. She was rather alluring to man-haters like my dad while she was working as a flight attendant. Now she's just your average Karen with a botched face, if you catch my drift. She oversees a makeshift daycare in the area with her claw-like hands and nails longer than her lipstick. How bizarre that parents would entrust their children to Edward Scissorhands in such a state. With those lengthy nails, she might potentially poke a child's eye out. That aside, she's as clumsy as her nails. She loves to be a pain in other people's lives and has an opinion on everything. Her voice is terrible, and her body is littered with more plastic than the ocean itself. Her authenticity is unmatched. She has a negative impact on Dad. I attribute my dad's hasty decision to send me to boarding school when I was 8 years old in large part to her. The reason being that she had no interest in caring for a child who wasn't biologically hers. The story of my dad is next. To be honest, he's the primary source of trouble here. Even though it's far from it, he believes his actions are justifiable since he's lived a long life and knows better. Claims he wishes he hadn't had me since I'm so unlike him. God, I'm relieved. A powerful lady, my mom was. Taking excellent care of my dad was one of her top responsibilities. Yet they slipped out. Dad wasn't evil, she'd assure me. He was just different. Plus, he will always be my dad, regardless of the circumstances. Nor should I ever lose sight of that. However, her spirit was pure. She was afraid I would turn against my father if she knew what she was doing. Just as he is today, I'm sure he was intolerable to her. After some time apart, they finalized their divorce. That was when I was 4 years old. 2 months subsequent to the dissolution of their marriage, my father wed Claudia. My mother passed away in a traffic accident, and they had Ivy when I turned 5. She was on her way to pick me up from school, so it will be with me forever. Without fail, she had never been tardy. Her tardiness was a mere 10 minutes once. It felt like a whole hour. 10 minutes, though. At a crossroads, an intoxicated motorist struck her. She perished while he lived. He was gone for good after a few years when he was arrested for drunk driving. They finally came and got me 2 hours after I waited in school. Since my dad showed up, I've been misled and bewildered. Whenever he turned to the expressionless Claudia and demanded an answer regarding me, she responded with the words "your kid, your problem," and I'll never forget how irritated he was. Yes, I agree, Dad. You can't now claim that your pampered child will be placed in my care. Finally, I have a secure career, and in my spare time, I run a couple of little enterprises. Since I turned 15, I have been working very hard and earning a living wage. College was my next step after boarding school. Only paid a visit over the winter break. That leaves me 8 hours of solo exploration. I just bought a house after putting in a lot of work to get here. It's a charming small spot. Surpassed my previous experience living in a shared apartment. Never in a million years did I think I'd be able to accomplish my lifelong objective. The catch is that I only relocated here a month ago. Even though I don't really care for my family, it was only right to include them in a moment of this magnitude. Due to this, I extended an invitation to the housewarming to them as well. Seeing my dad's response made me sad. The truth is that he appeared jealous. I was slightly irritated when he inquired about the architect, interior designer, and furniture. He insulted me by saying things like, "I wouldn't know and you never bothered telling me," after I gave him what I believed to be sufficient information. Seeking validation by drawing attention to our relationship flaws in front of our friends and coworkers. My boss included. After a week had gone by, he called me. I was juggling a complicated project at work. I consented to his request for a meeting since he felt it was critical. I returned home to find Claudia in a rage and Ivy, with swollen red eyes and a sideways look, staring at me from the living room. Dad was in the kitchen retrieving beer bottles from the refrigerator. I graciously turned him down because I was afraid of what he may say. He furrowed his brow and asked me a follow-up inquiry when I inquired as to his first request. If I had finally begun to care for us, they wanted to know. I scowled in bewilderment as I failed to get his point. In the living room, he invited Ivy and Claudia to join us. With a nod, I walked to a couch that was situated between the two and took a seat. Claudia scoffed, and Ivy lowered her arms. Upon entering, Dad joined them and took a seat facing me. As he reclined, He set his beer bottle on the coffee table. "Are you blind?" he inquired. A pause ensued. "My side is confused, and they're probably angry." He continued before I could answer by saying that I may be intentionally blind or that I just refuse to notice things that are obvious. He claimed that I had likely grown haughty ever since I bought a property and stopped looking at my loved ones. I groaned and demanded that he clarify his meaning by explaining what he meant by all of it. He proceeded to tell me that I was unconcerned about the gravity of the issue in the room after blowing sarcastically. According to him, I consciously opted to ignore the fact that my family's safety was at risk and refused to provide any assistance. I had to know the danger he was talking about, so I probed more. Ivy, who rolled her eyes and declared her pregnancy, caught his sight as he turned to gaze at her. It was my natural inclination to want to offer my congratulations to her. "The issue is with your child." Before I could do anything, "I should be aware of what's happening at home," Claudia informed me as she embraced her. "That it is important enough for me to inquire. According to Dad, Ivy recently found out she's pregnant, and the boy who was involved with her has suddenly dumped her." Claudia clarified that we should base our future decisions on Ivy's decision to retain it. The only thing I could think to ask was, is it affordable for her? Even though I was trying to be kind, Ivy and Claudia gave me the death gaze. I was worried about it. I had already begun to think that perhaps they are hoping that I can contribute financially to assist her. I was very prepared to do it. My father, however, got to his feet, crossed the room, and took a seat next to me. He later explained that this was the reason he had contacted me. Although my mother may not have instilled in me the values of a good brother, he assured me that he is a wonderful parent to his daughter. He also mentioned that brothers would sacrifice themselves to ensure the safety of their sisters. "Please, I implore you, forgive me. Even if my financial participation is necessary, I am not willing to die for her." With a sigh, I inquired as to his intention on the matter. He gave me a peck on the back, grinned, and declared, "That's my good boy." I forced a grin, but it quickly faded as soon as Dad started talking. "Ivylyn is going to get your house." "Yeah. I'm not." "Yes." Right away, I stated that. My dad scowled. "Why not?" he inquired of me. So I let him know that I could lend him some money, but the home would still be mine. While Dad got up from his seat and started yelling, I offered her a place to stay in without paying rent until she could figure out a way to pay it. To my father, it all makes perfect sense. However, he was adamant that I marry her and sell the property so that I could purchase another. Ivy is having a baby and is unemployed. She cannot afford to pay the bills or take care of the house, I said. My father also informed me that they would fall on my shoulders. "Could you please pardon me?" "Absolutely not." Even though I was enraged, I had to keep my composure. So, I stood up and informed him that was obviously not going to happen. I was also going to go. When I was done, I departed. That wasn't the end of it. The next week, when I was in the office, he paid a surprise visit to my residence. When I returned home, I noticed guys rearranging boxes outside the house. I have no idea how he gained in or where he obtained the keys. Stuff piled high in boxes. I quickly went inside and inquired about their activities. They informed me that the homeowner had specifically requested that they dispose of that belonging. I yelled out that I was the homeowner and that they needed to return my belongings inside and go immediately since I was the owner. This was the last thing I anticipated seeing on my way home, and it made me lose my temper. I walked inside to see my dad and Ivy, but they were still standing there, telling me to behave like a brother. They ignored my requests that they depart. So I threatened to contact the authorities if they did that. At that point, they departed for good. They spoke ill of me, slurs included. This is a lot to read, but trust me, it was far worse when I saw it in person. Now that a week has gone by, I'm starting to feel guilty. That is the reason for my posting here. Do I stand to be corrected? They rely on me, and I shouldn't abandon them like that, but I also have boundaries on how much I can tolerate helping them. Their complete lack of interest and involvement with me when I was a kid makes me angry, yet now they want me to die for them. Seems excessive, doesn't it? Report back to me. Friends aren't even worth bothering with at this point. For the moment, I am reliant on you all. I hope this message finds everyone in good health. I honestly didn't anticipate the kind of attention it received when I shared it a week ago. As they poured in, I read the comments, and some of them really made me think. However, I ultimately chose not to completely break ties with my family. It all started when Ivy called me. I agreed when she said she wanted to meet with me. Meeting at my place was her idea since she had something important to tell me, but I was still in shock from the previous incident. Hence, I was adamant that we find another place to meet. She was first somewhat nervous when we got to the coffee shop. She appeared very different from her usual ostentatious and impolite personality. She broke up with her boyfriend not long ago while we sat in the corner and spoke. After hearing from Dad that the man who had gotten her pregnant had abandoned her, I replied that I had a suggestion. She disagreed and added that her father feels the same way. What was it? I wanted to know from her. Additionally, she informed me that her father believes her boyfriend left her due to his commitment concerns, but the truth is that she is the one who struggles with commitments. Can you believe it? She said that she had feelings for this man, but that he had learned some things about her in the days leading up to her telling him she was pregnant. He was going to confront her about those things when they met, but she spoke first, which just made him madder. At that very moment, he went completely bonkers and blew a hole in the wall. He frightened her, she claimed. After that, he broke up with her and departed before she could react. He has been completely unresponsive to her repeated attempts to contact him via phone. His sole response was a text message in which he emphasized the importance of her taking care of the child before informing him. He won't even talk to her till then. However, in order to acquire that opportunity, she must eliminate the child. I knew Ivy wasn't perfect before, but this guy. In any case, I despise this man. I just wanted to know what those things were that he had discovered, and she stated it would be strange to tell a brother. I shrugged and told her that was fine if she didn't want to tell me since I assumed she was talking about the on the vans and escorting. Her heavy breath was abruptly exhaled before I could inquire about her reason for wanting to meet with me. Subsequently, she informed me that she had engaged in dubious activities. Concerned because I preferred not to hear the affirmation of all my assumptions, I was anxious. Even so, I accomplished it. She confided in me her lifelong dream of being an artist and painting. However, Claudia warned her that it wouldn't lead to financial success or a happy existence. It was advised that Ivy should seek a guy without delay. At first, she was repulsed by the attention she began to receive from older males. Ivy was informed by Claudia that that was a positive development when she informed her about it. True, the older guys were the ones with the financial acumen and the ability to manage their wealth. Claudia assured Ivy that college wouldn't or couldn't provide her with a decent, comfortable life when she was just 19 years old. Ivy was young, and that was something that many people were willing to pay for. For whatever reason, Ivy settled on a career as a model. Numerous modeling agencies were approached by her. No one seems to care about her. Then she crossed paths with a man in his 40s who said he could secure a gig for her. She was ecstatic until he informed her about her first employment, at which point he began to whisk her away to parties in lavish attire and shower her with beautiful jewels. Her plan all along was to sell her time to a man so he could book her for a modeling job. Despite her expectations, it turned out to be more than just supper. It was squandered by her. She did manage to land a modest modeling job where she got to shoot for a local label. However, it ended there. While she was hoping for a gig in return, a couple more men took advantage of her. However, she would often hear that she wasn't chosen. Eventually, she learned that the man who had invested in her was trying to sell her. She was a means to an end for him. She was terrified he would try to have her killed if she confronted him about it. She informed him that she was content with minimal pay work and had no interest in continuing her modeling career. Thankfully, he didn't have any problems letting her go. Then she gave bartending a go, and let me tell you, it was no picnic. Ivy. That is the definition of hard-earned Ivy. But I digress. She went on to say that if she did those menial tasks, Claudia would make fun of her. She used to say that women are the world's most beautiful things, but that they should be treated like a trophy and not allowed to do anything else. Their well-being is paramount, among other things. Because of this, Ivy began charging guys for dinner dates. She mentioned that there are plenty of lonely people who are looking for someone to talk to. But even it ran into trouble with individuals who were very possessive and believed they were owed more than what they paid for. Instead of sleeping with guys, she realized it was more troublesome to talk to them and make them feel close to her, so she began escorting. It was effective up until her buddy mentioned all Nivens. She made an effort, but her skills with a camera and editing weren't up to par. She needed a lot of help because she wasn't sociable enough. There was also failure there. Her ex-coworker became her boyfriend after that. Reunited, they were his coworkers at a barista. Much as she liked him, she couldn't stand how attached he was. He also lacked faith in her and exhibited some possessiveness. Admittedly, he had every rationale to question her. It turned out that she was still with All Niven and an escort, and he had no idea. She ceased escorting entirely at All Nivens, and she was content when her BF began supporting her with his little earnings. But Claudia wasn't. Her BF found out when she became pregnant, though. There are a couple of males on her list that she mentioned as possible dads. To help support her and the child, they all pitch in financially. Even one of them had asked her to be his wife. But she's aware that everyone is acting alone since they believe no one else is around. Which is absurd because they know she's an escort. Yet, she keeps it a secret since it helps pay the bills and would likely assist with the child. According to her, she felt she couldn't tell her dad, so she opted to spill the beans to me. Even though they're not making much money, her dad thinks she's just been modeling here. Moreover, she had a romantic partner who abandoned her when he ought to have remained. Since Claudia is mostly in the know, she recommends that Ivy wed the man who proposed so he may pretend to be the father. When that happens, Ivy is at a loss as to what to tell Dad. In addition to her aversion to deceiving others, she has reservations about marrying the person due to his eccentricity and advanced age. When I inquired as to how she wanted my assistance, she mentioned that she would be happy with my financial advice and that she wants me to reconcile with her father. She advised me to give in to my dad's requests and then take a break. At a later, less warm time, I may return. Is that an acceptable answer? She offered to help me out financially, but I politely rejected, explaining that I didn't feel comfortable leaving my own house. After she spilled her guts to me, she accused me of being selfish for harboring such thoughts, saying that I still lacked the basic humanity to lend her a hand. She reiterated Dad's assessment that I should be placed in an orphanage rather than being taken in when I was in need of a home. Getting to her feet, she stomped away. I don't believe I went overboard with my reaction. Is it selfish, though? Is that so? Do you agree with her account of events? Can it be used to defend her requests? How reliable is she? To me, it sounds like everything she said was true. However, does this imply that I ought to comply with her request? Just give me a heads up. Up to this point, it has been gnawing at my head. A week has gone by, and in that time, several events have transpired. Just wanted to give you all a heads up, so I pressed the keys. I appreciate everyone's encouragement about my last update. Having someone else validate my ideas is a huge comfort. I received a call from my dad shortly after meeting Ivy. He suggested we meet up in the pub so we could talk things out. Intrigued, I consented and proceeded to meet with him. While we sat at the counter, he made it clear that he was aware of my earnings potential. In response to my question about its significance, he assured me that I would be able to purchase a second home within a few years. I gave him the silent treatment and informed him that I already own a house, so we really need to stop talking about this. He was certain that I shouldn't have a family just yet and that women had it tougher when they're on their own. A secure place to call home is what that child needs. I reassured him that Ivy has been a part of their household for quite some time now and that everything is okay. A little infant poses no threat. Additionally, I inquired as to how she would manage to live alone in a whole house while pregnant. I mentioned that she would be better cared for if she were in the company of others. I was taken aback once again when Dad did that. According to him, Ivy invited him and Claudia to move in with him and my family. What I was hearing was unbelievable. I didn't have time to respond since the bartender chuckled sarcastically. His father took offense and demanded to know what the kid found humorous. Ivy was his response. She allegedly takes advantage of everyone and then discards them. He was questioned by my dad if he knew who he was referring to. He then indicated his relationship with her by nodding. I was taken aback. Was this the man? With his hands balled, Dad yelled harshly to the man, demanding to know why he had the audacity to start a family when he knew he couldn't afford to. When asked about the family and issue, the man put his hands up and said he wasn't responsible. Furthermore, he was not interested in taking care of a kid who was not biologically his. He was challenged by Dad to justify his thoughts. He informed us with a smile that he had a vasectomy performed last year due to his desire to avoid having children. Despite this, Ivy became pregnant. Furthermore, he discovered that she had lied to him about her whereabouts and was actually driving off with other guys. Later, he learned that she was in on the Vance. After Ivy eventually told him they were expecting a child, he said he still didn't want to accept it. For him, that was the final straw. Unfortunately, he was sterile. Therefore, it proved everything. He informed Ivy that he had known she had been unfaithful to him the whole time, and she revealed the truth. While my attention was fixated on the man's words, I could only see the gradual transformation of my dad's expression from wrath to shock to disappointment. No debt was due to Ivy, he shrugged and informed us. Instead, she owed him love, honesty, time, and money. He claimed ignorance about whether or not Dad was aware of the situation, but that no parent would be proud of such a child. Without saying a word, Dad clenched his jaw and rose from the seat, silently leaving. Afterwards, he sent me a text message informing me that he needed to get Claudia from her yoga session. What happened after that is a mystery to me, but the next day I discovered Ivy sobbing at my door. As far as she was concerned, I had wrecked everything. To prevent a meltdown, I brought her inside and soothed her before telling her that I had kept Mom's secret from Dad. Where my dad and I had gone, the bartender occurred to be her boyfriend. She went on to say that her dad had instructed her to stop working and remain at home. He said he was shocked she would do such a thing and was horrified by her. After telling her to change her ways and meet a decent man, he pointed out that she had very little chance of doing either at this time. She said, and I embraced her. Dad had just returned from meeting with me when he confronted her, so she apologized for assuming it was me. After I had forgiven her, she returned home. During her tirade, she informed me that Claudia had been relatively silent during her father's speech on faithful women. One of the things Ivy isn't allowed to talk about is how she acts as if she could say anything. She said that Claudia couldn't have an opinion since she is a yoga practitioner, and I wanted to know what she meant by that. I could only scowl in bewilderment as Ivy went on to describe what else transpired while she was weeping. Yoga? Alone with myself. What do you guys believe transpired in actuality? Will Ivy always be the apple of Dad's eye? After that, nobody got in touch with me. I will, however, keep you all informed once I see. You probably weren't expecting me to respond so quickly, but I felt compelled to. This is an update. I've only been uploading for the past 2 days. Anyone curious can call Ivy's ex-boyfriend Eric. The name doesn't matter. Let me show you the latest information. I visited my dad the day before yesterday. I informed him that I had made some decisions. I mentioned my desire to assist in the upbringing of Ivy's child. Plus, I was prepared to let her stay in my room. If she gets a job immediately, I'll pay for the diapers and other necessities, but she has to find her own way. My dad warned me that if that happened, the baby would be alone. Therefore, Elle advised that she go into freelancing or working remotely. At least Dad wasn't being his customary impolite self. He sighed after pausing. Seated on the couch, he informed me that he believed I had despised him. Even though he was correct, I questioned him about his reasoning. He claimed it was because his mother also despised him. I let him know right away that she had never told me that. She assured me time and time again that my dad loved and cared for me, and I informed him that my disappointment stemmed from the fact that I had been so mistaken about him. After hearing all that from my mom, my impression of my dad was one of complete indifference and disregard. He told me he despised himself for several reasons while rubbing his eyes. He mentioned that he had feelings for Mom, but they hadn't known each other for a long enough period to determine if they were compatible. With a heavy heart, he confessed that he was forced to marry her since he had caused her to get pregnant. She was a decent wife, but he never sensed love between them. Then he crossed paths with Claudia. Something tingled inside of me when he said it. My body froze. This is all completely new to me. According to my dad, Claudia ignited a fire within him that he was unaware he possessed. She brought him immense joy. And he caught sentiments before he even realized it. He also got Claudia pregnant before he could figure out what was right and wrong. He proceeded to inform Claudia that it was incorrect. But by then it was past. A baby was on the way. Warned her to be patient. Claudia felt unsafe and came to our house, so he told her instead of Mom. Everything she told Mom was true. After Mom confronted Dad, he finally gave up. Mom was very wounded. Therefore, it was a particularly unpleasant incident. However, she still requested a divorce from her father in a respectful manner. My parents had a divorce because my dad had an extramarital affair and got my stepmom pregnant. There is no way this man could deteriorate any farther. My dad glanced across at me as he paused. He mentioned that he had a pleasant year with Claudia before Mom's passing. Plus, he was obligated to return me to my residence. It was everything that Claudia despised. She was worried, once again, that my dad would put me ahead of their baby. If it's out of shame or whatever. As a result, 3 years down the road, he had me enrolled in boarding school. Also, I was never required to remain at home for an extended period of time that would have been uncomfortable for Claudia. According to him, love leads to foolish actions. Not to mention that I wanted to strike this dude. However, I managed it. Upon turning back, I noticed Claudia positioned at the entrance, holding a water bottle. She placed her water bottle on the table and disappeared into the kitchen, claiming she was simply getting ready to go to yoga class. She returned and re-entered the room as soon as I blinked, leaving me unable to regain consciousness. I went out after her since I was dead. I went back to giving her her water bottle, which I had taken up. I stepped out of her presence just as she was starting to drive away in her automobile. I sat in my car and silently followed her as I needed a trip to clear my head. She had exited her vehicle at the curbside of a yoga studio. She took stock of her surroundings before beginning to make her way down an alley. She took another glance around before hopping into another vehicle. They got in the car, and she kissed and hugged the driver. No blinking on my part. After locking my jaw, I parked my automobile. I stepped outside and entered the yoga studio. They flat out refused to provide me any personal information when I asked about Claudia's check-in. I voiced my concern for her safety and demanded to know whether she was there. They denied ever working with that particular customer. After returning to my car, I waited. I don't know why, but the second the other car pulled in, I began filming. She was slapping her butt as she joyfully made her way to the parking lot, as a guy sprang out of the car to open the door, embrace, and kiss her. Oh no, yoga isn't for you, Claudia. I departed before she could reach the parking lot. My dad cheating on my mom is a fact. And now he's being unfaithful. Good fortune. I have ignored my dad's several attempts to reach me by phone. Now all I want to do is go talk to Claudia about it, so I'll have to wait and see what happens. Am I supposed to? Update. Hello everyone. I believe this is going to be the final update. You guys were hoping for it sooner, and I get it. It's been a week. However, this week was rather eventful. We started with the fact that I mustered the courage to approach Claudia. I left when my dad was out. Ivy had dozed off. I wanted to know if she was scheduled for a yoga session that day, so I asked. She claimed to have it daily, including on Sundays. In the kitchen, she was preparing spaghetti. I inquired as to the identity of her yoga teacher. She chose an arbitrary name. Could it be a man? I inquired of her. No, she said while laughing. Taking a boy would be a mistake. She spoke. Even though the club she frequented didn't employ any female instructors, I couldn't help but find it amusing that she had one. Her voice trailed off and her hands stopped stirring the pasta sauce as she informed me I was incorrect. This is what they informed me when I told her I became a member of the club yesterday. She wanted to know how I was able to locate her club. I informed her that during my previous visit, I had followed her. She knocked down a spoon. As soon as I took it, she pivoted to face me and asked, "What are you getting at?" That was her question. Thus, I informed her of my observations. Expectedly, she denied it. When I stated I witnessed it, I meant it. She gave me the silent treatment and said her dad would never believe me. So I retrieved my phone, played the video, and assured her that at least he would trust his own eyes. She froze for a moment, unable to express her disbelief. She continued to make the spaghetti once her emotions cooled down. She claimed it was irrelevant at this point. A divorce was already in her plans. I was taken aback. She was a vile woman. I get that my dad was rightfully punished, but that woman is a serpent. The man she meets at the club has been her lover for 3 years, she informed me. Once it was safe to do so, they reignited their romance. She said they had been romantically involved for a long time, but he was already married to the daughter of a client whose father had employed him. He might have chosen to end his marriage and satisfy his debts, but Claudia and her lover came to an agreement that he would stay married. After that, he would hook up with Claudia after divorcing his wife. However, Claudia became pregnant. So, therefore, as any good woman would, she was eager to find a gentleman to lean on for support. Thus, she resolved to retain her father. Claudia met her partner and became pregnant when they were having an on and off relationship. So, she went with Dad. Moreover, I informed him that he needed to take action. He claimed to have gotten the willies, forcing her to consult her mother. Today, her ex-lover has a business and is a widower. She is fully stable. "Lady," she admonished, "do what you can." While grinning, she spun around. As she glanced over my shoulder, though, her smile vanished. Within seconds, her grin was vanished. Dad was at the doorway, his bald head and fiery eyes staring back at me as I turned around. He trembled. "I see." As soon as Ivy woke up, her dad escorted her to the kitchen. He inquired as to her paternity. She jerked her head in Claudia's direction. She informed him that she had always known him to be her father, thus she didn't care about their blood relationship. He walked the floor while running his fingers through his hair. Claudia and Ivy were instructed to vacate his premises for the subsequent 2 days. Since Ivy and Claudia's divorce is ongoing, they have taken refuge at a shelter. Dad has been very sorry since I suggested he see a therapist, and he has begged me to do so. Always, I am able to forgive him. Like Claudia? Right? She was rejected by her lover. He insists he has never spoken to her. Claudia has pleaded with me to give her the proof, and I have it. Considering Ivy and her pregnancy, it has even been requested by her. Tell me something, Claudia. Your kid, your problem. What am I to do? Keep the video or remove it? Later on, we will provide an update in the comments section. I appreciate you sticking by me, offering advice, and being there for me. It feels great.